Stay with me for a moment, because what happened today in Dubai is not the kind of ordinary news you see, scroll past and move on from. Dubai is one of those cities that seems built precisely to project control, stability, and the impression that nothing can fall out of rhythm. That is exactly why, when reports began to appear about explosions being heard, interceptions in the air, and then damage reported at key points, the feeling was completely different. It was no longer just a regional news story, but a moment that struck directly at the image of an untouchable city. And in moments like this, the biggest problem appears. Not a lack of information, but an excess of it. Within a few hours, videos, posts, comments appear. People saying they saw something, others saying it is fake, and suddenly everyone is talking, yet very few still clearly understand what actually happened. So let's keep things simple, like friends talking. We are not going to follow panic, we are not going to use inflated phrases, but the logical thread of events, so that you understand exactly what happened, why it matters, and what it means for the people who are there or connected to Dubai. What makes today so sensitive is not only the fact that explosions were heard in the region. What changes everything is that the effects reached infrastructure and symbolic points in Dubai, and the moment places like that appear in the news, public reaction changes immediately. Because it is one thing to hear about tensions somewhere in the region, and another to hear that the airport, well-known areas, and the flows that keep the city moving are affected. In that second, the news becomes personal for millions of people, even if they are not there. What we know in short is that the day began with signals that many people describe the same way in such situations: loud noises, light in the sky, confusion, and a great deal of uncertainty. In the first moments, almost no one knows whether it is an isolated incident, a false alarm, or the beginning of a larger event. Then the second stage appears, the one that gives the story real weight, confirmations about effects on the ground. And this is exactly where what put Dubai at the center of attention today comes in, namely the information about damage and incidents at essential points. The moment people understood it was not just noise in the sky was when details related to the airport and other emblematic areas began to appear. From that point on, the discussion was no longer whether something was heard, but how big the impact is and what comes next. Here it is important to explain very clearly a difference many people do not notice in the first hours. In such a context, the fact that there is damage in a place does not automatically mean that place was hit directly, because some effects can also come from fragments resulting after interceptions. For the public, the images look almost the same: smoke, agitation, sirens, people filming and drawing conclusions in real time. But for someone who wants to understand correctly, the difference between a direct hit and debris after interception matters enormously. And here you can see very clearly why a good video should not only be fast, but also clear. If you present everything as one single explosion of panic, the audience leaves scared. If you explain the mechanism, the audience leaves informed. From a psychological point of view, what happened today had a powerful effect on Dubai's image. The city lives not only from buildings and infrastructure, but also from its reputation as a safe, organized place, protected from the chaos around it. When incidents appear that touch symbols or areas instantly recognized by the global audience, people feel that the bubble has burst. Even if some damage is limited, the emotional effect is much greater than it appears on paper. And that is exactly what was felt today, not just a day of news, but a day in which the world felt that a city built on predictability entered, at least for a few hours, the unpredictable logic of a tense region. That explains why reactions were so fast and so strong. Now, if we connect the events like a clear story, the picture looks roughly like this. First come the initial signals, meaning noises, explosions heard, images on social media, and the first confused accounts. Then come the partial confirmations, the ones that give the situation a real outline. The moment information appears about effects at the airport and in other important points, the city moves from a state of confusion into a state of practical crisis. After that, the third stage begins, which is often the hardest for people, the immediate impact on mobility. For very many people, the problem is no longer what happened geopolitically, but whether they can still leave, whether they can still arrive, whether their flight still exists. And here comes the most concrete part for the general public: flights. The moment risks appear in the airspace, airlines react quickly, sometimes even brutally from an operational point of view, because safety and route control are priorities. That means suspensions, delays, cancellations, reroutings, and very importantly, a huge amount of confusion for passengers. In such moments, people receive different messages from different sources and feel they no longer have control over their plans. Many make the classic mistake. They head to the airport just to see there. But exactly on days like this, the road to the airport can mean hours lost, unnecessary crowding, and extra stress, especially if operations are suspended or limited. The most useful thing you can say in a video like this is simple and very valuable. Do not guide yourself by rumors. Do not guide yourself by chat groups. Do not guide yourself by a viral clip. Guide yourself by the airline, by the airport, and by official updates, because in crises of this type, the situation can change from hour to hour. A flight that appears as scheduled may be suspended later, and a cancelled flight may be rescheduled on another route, but only the airline can truly confirm that for you. And here again you can see the difference between good content and content made only for attention. A good video does not just say, there are cancellations, it is chaos, but helps the person understand what to do in practical terms and how to avoid decisions made in panic. Alongside the flights, the economic and logistical impact also appears, and many people ignore it at first. Dubai is not just a city of holidays and spectacular hotels, but a huge hub of trade, transit, and services. That means any disruption in airports, ports, or routes produces chain effects. It is felt not only in plane tickets and delays, but also in transport, businesses, deliveries, and commercial flows passing through the Emirates. And that is why today's news is important, not only for someone who has a flight in the next 24 hours. It is also important for those who follow markets, trade, tourism, and regional stability, because Dubai has far too large a role to be treated like a simple local news story. There is another element that appears every time, and says a lot about how people react to uncertainty. In some areas, life may seem almost normal, while in others, anxiety, impulsive buying, and the behavior of, I need to secure some kind of control, appear immediately. It is a very strong human reflex. When you cannot control the big event, you try to control the small things: supplies, roads, plans, messages, family. That is why, in a good video, it is worth explaining not only what happened on the map, but also what happens in people's minds. That makes those who follow you feel that you are not just delivering information, but also explaining the reality behind the reactions. Now comes the part that, honestly, makes the difference between a serious channel and a channel that only runs after panic, separating what is confirmed from what is only circulating online. This is where long-term public trust is earned. On days like this, social media can be useful as a thermometer, meaning it shows you that something is happening and that people are reacting. But social media is not, on its own, sufficient proof for major conclusions. A clip filmed by someone may be real, but the explanation attached to that clip may be completely wrong. And precisely because the speed is enormous, people share the interpretation before confirmation exists. That means that if you want to present things correctly, you need a simple and very clear rule. What is confirmed by solid sources, you state directly. What appears in multiple places but is still changing, you present with caution. What exists only on social media, you call unconfirmed. That rule sounds banal, but on tense days it makes all the difference. The audience feels immediately when someone is trying to seem first, at any cost, and when someone is trying to be clear, even if that means saying a few times, "We still do not have confirmation." And paradoxically, that is exactly what grows your audience in the long term. Because people return to the one who helps them understand, not to the one who throws them into confusion. There is something else important to say, and it has to be said calmly. The fact that there is confusion in the first hours does not automatically mean that official information is being hidden, or that no one is telling the truth. In many such situations, authorities, companies, and major institutions confirm in stages, precisely because they verify before they communicate. And for the public, this pace may seem slow, but in fact it is exactly what prevents total informational chaos. What does this mean for the next hours and for those who are following the situation? It means that not only the initial event should be followed, but also the signals that show whether the city and the infrastructure are gradually getting back into rhythm. Here the most important things are very concrete: the status of the airports, messages from airlines, possible extensions of suspensions, partial reopenings, and any official update about safety and the functioning of services. If these signals begin to stabilize, it means the city is starting to come out of the shock phase and enter the management phase. If, on the contrary, new confirmed incidents or new disruptions appear, then the story enters a new and more tense stage. And here, how you close such a text matters. Not with panic, not with dramatic promises, but with a mature conclusion. This is not the moment to draw rushed conclusions, but it is clearly a serious moment that has affected a major center of the region. For ordinary people, the best thing right now is informational discipline. That means official sources, patience, verification, and zero decisions made only because that is how I saw it in a video. And for you as a presenter, that is exactly the real opportunity. To be the person who brings order into the noise, who explains in a way people understand, who does not exaggerate, but also does not put the audience to sleep. Because on days like this, people are not looking only for novelty. People are looking for guidance, and if you manage to offer clear, calm, and intelligent guidance, people will stay with you not only for this video, but for all the videos that follow, and maybe that is in fact the most important part of today's whole story. Not only what was heard, not only what was seen, but the way a city used to control was forced, for a few hours, to live in uncertainty. Dubai will move forward, the infrastructure will be repaired, flights will resume, and the city's rhythm will return. But this day remains as a very clear reminder that, in a tense region, even the strongest centers can be touched in an instant. That is why the best thing we can do is not to panic, but to remain clear-headed, to follow correct sources, to understand the difference between fact and rumor, and not to let noise become louder than reality. And if you stayed until here, it means you are not looking only for breaking news, but you want to understand what is really happening. And that is exactly what we will continue to do, without exaggerations, without unnecessary theater, but with clear information, explained in an accessible way. Stay close, because the situation can change quickly, and when something confirmed appears, we will return immediately. Until then, be careful what you share, be careful which sources you use to inform yourself, and stay calm.